Good evening and welcome to CB8 Speaks. My name is Sophia James and I'm a board member of Community Board 8, which covers the Upper East Side from 59th to 96th Street and Roosevelt Island. Today I have with me Will Sanchez, who is the co-chair of the Communications Committee. Will, welcome.
Thank you.
So why don't you give us a little bit of a history of your involvement in the Communications Committee and on Community Board 8?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to do so. I was appointed by Virginia Fields almost 10 years ago. June would be my 10th year anniversary. I was a replacement for another board member, realized how much work it was, and decided it wasn't for him or her, and I stepped in 10 years ago. At that time, CB8 Speaks did exist. In fact, it existed for many years before under the guidance of Ken Mills. I don't know if you know the name Ken Mills, but in his day, he was a very beloved, he was a well-known Democratic operative, worked all the elections, and a very knowledgeable man. And his dream was always to have television and community boards involved. In fact, I believe we're the only community board with our own TV show, Community Board 8 Speaks. At that time, almost 10 years ago, the Communications Committee had Ken Mills as his chair and the Peels, Jonathan and Madeline Peel, and they were the two moderators of the show. What was unique about their show, they took it on the road, meaning they had cameras and equipment, and they went to the location and did the show. You get to imagine it's a lot of work.
Sure.
And so they only did a few shows a year, but they did a beautiful job. Initially, I was appointed to revitalize the Public Safety Committee for the Community Board. It fell off, and I brought it back, and one of the forums I did was domestic violence. And we air that every year because it's such a timely topic, unfortunately. And the Peels did a wonderful job in capturing that, using old technology, so to speak. David Rosenstein got involved as a member, and then the Peels had to drop off because of other commitments. But Dave was very passionate in keeping Community Board 8 Speaks alive. Sophia, he must have asked me 2 or 3 times, and I said, no, Dave, no way. And then fortunately for him, and for me too, as it turns out, Monica, my wife, Monica McCain, became a public member of the Communications Committee. And of course, Dave says, well, do you want to be a member of this? He was desperate. Communications Committee, the Community Board 8 Speaks TV show. She said, sure, why not? So I followed them here. Oh, Sophia, I fell in love with the place the first time I was here. I couldn't believe the energy that was vibing through this place. The people here was a mixture of ages. I like the fact that many of them were even older than I was. And they were really into it. They weren't afraid of the technology. You know, they were editing. They were doing all sorts of things. That was very exciting. And you can see the excitement in them. It says, I want to be part of that. And so, we got the training, the 3 of us, to work on the Manhattan Neighborhood Network. We trained initially upstairs. There's 2 more studios upstairs, the smaller studios. They're more compact. In those days, there was only 1 camera, so we figured, well, that'd be easier to learn because it was very intimidating to look at these studios, and you look like a set of Star Wars. Okay, my God. And so we did that first couple of years, working upstairs, Dave, I, and Monica. And boy, it was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun because we were learning things. We never done this before. But after a while, we got a little bit burnt out, and we decided, well, we need to expand. And so I decided to learn more about the downstairs because I had studio envy. I walked up the stairs to the little room, dark corner, and I said, geez, I like to be with the big boys, And so I went to that route. So I went and learned about how to work this thing, have to be certified. So the requirements are, maybe be interested, you have to be a Manhattan resident. All the training is free. You go to an orientation where they, sort of warn you, well, this is a time commitment. Just learning to do, never mind doing a show, that's another time commitment, just learning what to do. And then you go to training. So the first training I recall is learning how to work the cameras. And then you go inside the control room where all the action happens. They've got the robotics where you can control that. Got the control room where you do the switching back and forth. They got computer graphics so you can show, video. You can show lower thirds. You learn the lingo like lower thirds. What's lower thirds? The little name that comes on the bottom. The crawl. The little thing that crawls across. The teleprompter. So some people like to read what they're saying. The phones, because some of our shows are live and people call in and you got to be able to work the phones. So we learned all that, and it takes a few months, and then you go to an internship. An internship means you got to do it with 2 or 3 other shows, other producers. So this is very much a learning laboratory. So I work with other producers and figuring out, the best practices, and it was just. Oh, it's just unbelievable, the energy that each producers bring to their own show. Some are more carefree than others. Some are, very tight and controlled. They want to, precise, and, you make a mistake, they scream and yell at you, but all in good, intention. And some other more laid back, okay, let it roll. And whatever they get, they're just completely happy. You just love to have stuff on film. And they're really not into the nuances of getting things, precise. I'm definitely more on the professional side, meaning I want to get more precise. I like my lower thirds to read exactly right and not somebody else's name.
Of course.
And so it's been just tremendous to do these shows.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. I would like to know also, beyond that, what really influenced you to join the community board? Did you have prior experience in media?
I have no experience in media whatsoever. I was a mathematics major in college, and I entered the business world. And after a while, I founded my own business. So I've been very much a job creator. So I had my own company, software house, and this is back in the 80s. Those were very exciting times because the industry was changing. Well, the industry always constantly changing, but in those days, and even changed in the 80s, people were leaving their mainframes, going to personal computers. It was just exciting times. 10 years ago, a board member, a community member, retired or dropped out from the community board. And Barry Schneider, who I knew from working with the Community Emergency Response Team, CERT, that's one of the things that I work with to help my community be prepared in times of emergencies. Well, Barry and I were in the same class, so we bonded after several months of, putting out fires and doing all sorts of dangerous, there's a lot more common sense things,
Saving lives.
CPRs, that kind of stuff, but also basic things like having enough food in your house. Think about your pets. What are you going to do if there's an emergency? Stuff happens, like an explosion could happen. Can you, and one of the things are, well, what do you do with your pets? If we cover all that. Anyway, he invited me to go and interview for the position. And I respect Barry, and I said, well, Barry, if you're involved, I definitely want to be involved. So I interviewed with Virginia Field's office. I had very little clue as to what a community board was, but my wife did, and she said, definitely do it. It's very, very, very exciting. It'll look good on your resume, although I didn't need anything else on my resume at the time. And since I came in after the fact, I was a little bit caught like a deer in the headlights because I just jumped right in because I missed orientation. There's no mentor-mentee in community boards. You sink or swim. So I did a lot of listening. And the first thing I decided, I'm going to run for secretary because you get to see everything and you get to know everybody's names because you go to roll call. Right. So when Dave Liston became chair, I became the secretary, one of 3 secretaries, and I did that for 3 years. And also, I got involved in revitalizing the public safety. I had fallen off committee, and I think I did a great job on that because it survives it today and it's doing wonderfully well. And one of the first things I did was that domestic violence forum I mentioned and had the appeals, videotape it. And it was great. And what was the question again?
What influenced you?
Influenced me.
Yes.
So I have to say Barry Schneider and my wife.
Oh, that's excellent. That's good. Because usually they say behind every great man's ambitions, there's always a great woman to kind of influence you and drive you. That's important.
Very true in my case.
What other committees are you involved in on the Community Board 8? Tell us a little bit more about your other interests on the Community Board.
Okay. And I was also on the posting committee, where Terry Slater and Barbara Rutter were the co-chairs. That was a very interesting meeting because it pertains somewhat to communications and how do we communicate to the public that we're having a meeting on street life or landmarks committee. And our most popular way is to post a piece of paper on a lamppost. And we talked about, is that the best way? If we're going to do that, should we use a special color, the taping? So we went into the mechanics of that. It was very interesting. And this is going back a few years. And the end result was a paper, a document with our recommendations on how to do posting. And that David Liston was very proud of and passed along to everybody. I think we should get a copy of that in the next executive committee. So when I joined the communications committee to join Dave as the co-chair, I discovered I didn't have time to do public safety. Posting was a limited time period. And so I excused myself from public safety, and Matt Bondi continued with it because I wanted to take more training here. So as I mentioned, I had studio envy, and so I became certified, and then the real work started. Okay, I could do a show, so how do we do Community Board 8 Speaks? Who should be our guest? Who should be our host? And it fell on me to sort of keep it going with the help of Dave and Monica. And their primary role was as host. And occasionally they would find a guest. And some of the interesting way we find guests is anywhere we can. I found one guest on Our Town. They did an interview on a noise expert, Dr. Arlene Bronsoft, and she turns out to live in the Upper East Side. So we invited her to do a show just on noise. And of course, there's a lot of noise. That's a quality of life issue.
Right, especially with the Second Avenue subway.
This is before the Second Avenue subway.
So now it must be worse.
A very interesting show. And then I keep an eye and ear when we have members speak to us at the community board. We'll have representatives from the local hospitals, from local organizations. If I hear someone that's especially articulate, and we found one like that, they're all very articulate, but there's someone that really outstanding, it really hits you hit me. Oh, this person from the hospital, I think was just great, and we invited, I forget her name, and Monica interviewed her and did very, very well. Another way we found a guest, I was sitting right next to Gridlock Sam. I said, Sam, would you like to get on the show? And he said, yes. So what I discovered in doing the show now for almost 7 years, that the personal approach is the best approach. Emailing somebody was a very busy, it's a hit and miss. With the electeds, you got to work with the chief of staff, with the scheduler. Once you get them on the schedule, that's the best way to getting them. If you talk to them, they'll say, yeah, but it means nothing until the scheduler puts them on the schedule. They live by that schedule. So I learned that. It doesn't matter what the electeds tell you, it's the scheduler that has all the power. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Will, for giving us a historical aspect of Community Board 8 and your involvement. I think it's critical, and especially for the future that we learn from you, and so we can kind of take that with us. And so I thank you again, and I thank you for joining us on CB8 Speaks, and join us next time as we interview and meet other community board members on Community Board Speaks. Have a good day.